After I blocked her number, my neighbor faked an assault claim using edited security footage. Cops arrested me in front of my kids while she told them I was a bad person. But my backup cam showed her lunging first, and I took it straight to the DA. The last thing I expected that morning was to be in handcuffs, barefoot in my own driveway, while my 2 kids screamed from the porch. I can still hear the way my daughter cried, "Mommy, what's happening?" and the way my son clung to her, shaking. 2 police officers stood beside me, one reading my rights like it was some kind of formality. The taller one avoided eye contact. The other one looked sorry but kept his hand on my arm anyway. My neighbor Lana stood at the end of her driveway with her arms crossed and that smug little smirk she always had when she thought she'd won. "This is ridiculous," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I didn't assault anyone. Check the footage." "Oh, we did," the officer said, almost apologetic. "Ms. Clarkson provided her camera footage. It shows you aggressively approaching her." That word, aggressively, almost made me laugh. I was half awake that morning, walking out to toss a bag of trash before work. But apparently, on her version of events, I was some violent maniac. Lana tilted her head and called out, loud enough for the whole cul-de-sac to hear, "You shouldn't put your hands on people, Megan." Then she looked straight at my kids and added, "Your mom's a bad person." Something in me cracked. I wanted to scream, but the sound just died in my throat. I kept replaying it in my head as they took me away, her smirk, the flashing lights, my kids crying. She'd been angry ever since I blocked her number 2 weeks ago. Before that, she texted constantly, asking for favors, gossiping, making weird comments about my husband before he left. I finally had enough. I blocked her and told her, firmly, to stop coming over. Apparently, that was my crime. I sat in a holding cell for 6 hours, numb, until they finally let me call my sister to pick up the kids. I thought it couldn't get worse, until I saw the footage she'd given the police. It showed me stepping into her yard, shouting with audio conveniently added in, then rushing toward her as she flinched and stumbled back. It was surreal, like watching a cheap deepfake of yourself doing something you know you didn't do. But I wasn't panicking yet, because what Lana didn't know was that I'd installed my own backup camera last month. A small one pointing out from my front window after her dog kept digging up my flower bed. Caught everything. And the truth? She lunged first. The moment I realized that, the moment I watched her grab at me, stumble, then deliberately fall back and clutch her arm like she'd been hit, I knew what I had to do. This wasn't just about clearing my name. This was about showing everyone who Lana really was. But before I could act, I found out something even more twisted. Something that made her fake assault claim look almost mild in comparison. Because Lana hadn't just set me up for assault. She'd been planning something much, much worse. Lana moved in next door about a year after my husband, Jason, and I separated. At first, she seemed nice. Early 40s, single mom, always waving from her porch with a glass of white wine in hand. I was trying to rebuild my life then, balancing 2 kids, a full-time job at the hospital, and a mortgage that felt heavier by the day. So when Lana started bringing over baked goods and offering to help with the kids, I was honestly grateful for the company. She'd say things like, "We single moms have to stick together," or "Don't worry, I'll keep an eye on the house when you're gone." It sounded kind. And in the beginning it was. She'd mow the little patch of grass between our driveways, bring in my packages, and even offered to carpool our kids to school. But there were red flags even then. One time, she mentioned she'd seen Jason pull into my driveway and stay for 20 minutes. She smirked when she said it. "Guess things aren't as over as you said." Huh? I laughed it off, but it made me uncomfortable. She'd noticed the exact time he came and left, and she wasn't supposed to be watching like that. After that, she started getting too involved. She'd text me late at night, "Saw you were up. Everything okay?" Or, "Your son left his window open again. I closed it for you." That last one creeped me out. Still, I told myself she meant well. People get lonely. And after Jason officially moved out of state, I figured she was just trying to fill her own silence. But the tone shifted around April. She got possessive, jealous, even. She'd get snippy if I didn't answer her texts. Once, She left a note on my door that said, "You used to be friendlier before you got that new job. Don't forget who helped you when you were down." I started pulling away. I stopped replying to every message, stopped letting her watch the kids, and told her I didn't want to gossip about neighbors. Then she started spreading things. I'd run into people at the grocery store who looked at me weirdly, like they knew something I didn't. One coworker mentioned she'd heard I was having issues controlling my temper. I had no idea what that meant, until I found out Lana had been telling people I'd yelled at her in front of my kids and scared her. It all clicked one afternoon when she knocked on my door and asked if I'd forgiven her. I said, "For what?" And she gave this little smile, like we were sharing an inside joke. "You'll see," she said. 2 days later, she texted me 12 times in one night. The last message said, "You're not the victim you think you are." That's when I blocked her. And that's when everything started to spiral. She stopped waving, stopped pretending to be friendly. Instead, she started parking her car right up against my driveway, positioning her camera toward my house, and accidentally leaving her sprinklers on when my kids waited for the bus. At first, I thought she was just being petty. But then she sent an anonymous complaint to my HOA about aggressive behavior and public disturbances. That was 2 weeks before she called the cops. Now, looking back, I see the pattern, the obsession, the manipulation, the control. She wanted me to need her. When I didn't, she decided to destroy me. And she might have pulled it off if I hadn't discovered what she'd been hiding in her garage. Because after I got out on bail, I went looking for proof she was lying. What I found wasn't just proof. It was evidence that she'd been stalking me. For months, I didn't sleep much after I got home that night. My wrists were still sore from the cuffs, and every creak in the house made me jump. My kids were shaken too. My daughter, Ellie, kept asking, "Is Miss Lana mad at us?" I told her not to worry, but my voice cracked halfway through. I took the next day off work, mostly to breathe and to start digging. If Lana had edited footage, she had to have done it somewhere. She wasn't exactly tech-savvy. She once asked me how to connect her Roku to Wi-Fi, so someone had to have helped her. I started small, looking at old text messages, HOA emails, anything that showed her pattern of harassment. Then I checked the timestamps on her footage. The assault supposedly happened at 7:42 a.m., but my car's backup camera showed me walking outside at 7:46. That 4-minute gap mattered. I emailed my lawyer the real footage right away and copied the metadata. He told me to hang tight and not confront her. But that was easier said than done when she was right next door, parading around like nothing happened. That afternoon, she was outside watering her flowers, humming. She waved at the mailman, then looked at me, long enough to make sure I saw her smirk again. I almost lost it. Instead, I went around the side of my house to check the boundary fence, and that's when I noticed something weird. Her garage door was slightly open. Not wide, but just enough to see boxes stacked along the side, and a faint glow of a computer screen. I didn't plan to look, but curiosity and anger make you do stupid things. I walked closer, quiet, staying in the shadow. That's when I saw my own face, frozen on her computer screen. It was a paused frame from her camera footage. She was editing it. I didn't move. I just stood there watching her drag a timeline back and forth, cutting clips, zooming in. She had headphones on, muttering something to herself. Then I heard her say, "You shouldn't have blocked me, Megan." I backed up slowly, shaking, and ran back into my house. I called my lawyer again, told him what I saw, and he told me to document everything. So I did. I started saving every incident, every noise, every car movement. I even set up motion alerts on my backup cam. That same night, around midnight, I caught her walking across the grass between our houses with a flashlight. She crouched near my flower bed, looking at something. Then she reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out something small, round, and black. When I checked in the morning, I found it. A Bluetooth microphone. She had planted it right under my living room window. That's when I knew this wasn't just harassment. It was obsession. I took photos, timestamped everything, sent them to my lawyer, and called the police again. But because there was an ongoing investigation, They said they couldn't do much until my lawyer presented the footage formally. Meanwhile, Lana got bolder. She started talking to my kids again, pretending nothing happened. One day, she handed Ellie a note that said, "I'm sorry your mom doesn't let you play anymore." I was done being quiet. I went straight to her porch and told her to stay the hell away from my family. She just smiled. "Maybe you should be more careful what you say in front of your window," she said softly. "People are listening." That line chilled me, because she was right. Someone had been listening. But the real twist came 2 days later, when I found out she hadn't been working alone. 2 days later, I got a call from my lawyer, Marcus. His voice had that careful tone, the one people use right before they say something you don't want to hear. "Megan," he said, "I need you to brace yourself. The police report mentions a witness." "A witness?" I repeated. "Who?" He hesitated. "It's Jason, your ex-husband." For a few seconds, I couldn't even breathe. "That's impossible," I said. "He's in Colorado. He hasn't even been in town for months." "That's what I thought," Marcus said. "But according to the report, he came by the morning of the incident to drop something off for the kids. He gave a statement saying he saw you yelling at Lana." I swear my hands went numb. Jason and I hadn't spoken in weeks, and when we did, it was strictly about the kids. But apparently he'd been in touch with her. Behind my back. When I called him, he didn't even deny it. "Look, Megan," he said, his voice casual, like he was explaining a late bill. "Lana called me. She said you were having one of your meltdowns again. I just wanted to make sure the kids were okay." "Meltdowns?" I repeated. "Jason, she's lying. She's editing videos, planting microphones." He cut me off. "You always think people are out to get you." That sentence hit me like a slap. He'd said it before, during our divorce, when I told him about his affair with his coworker. "So, you're taking her side?" I asked, my voice shaking. "She just seems worried about you," he said. "She's been watching out for the kids while you work those long shifts. Maybe you should." I hung up before he could finish. It wasn't just betrayal. It was humiliation. My ex, the man who once promised to protect our family, had been feeding the woman trying to destroy me. And then, things started making even less sense. The next morning, Lana was outside again, smiling like she'd already won. "Rough night?" she called out, sipping her coffee. "I heard Jason stopped by." I froze. "How did you—" "Oh, he told me you'd probably be mad," she said, grinning. "But he just wanted to help. I mean, someone has to keep an eye on you." Something inside me snapped. "Stay away from me and my kids," I said. She tilted her head. "You really should calm down, Megan. People are starting to talk." That day, my car tires were slashed. I reported it immediately, but there were no cameras pointing toward the street. Only hers. And she told the responding officer she'd heard yelling earlier, but didn't see anything. Classic Lana. That night, I went through my backup camera footage again. And that's when I noticed something in the corner of the frame. Jason's truck. Parked 2 houses down. The timestamp? 2 hours before the supposed assault. He had been there. I felt sick. Then I checked my phone and found something even worse. A missed call from an unknown number. When I played the voicemail, my blood ran cold. It was Lana's voice. Calm. Rehearsed. "You should have kept me as a friend, Megan. Now you'll see what happens when people stop trusting you." And in the background, faint but unmistakable, was Jason's laugh. That voicemail changed everything. I played it at least 20 times, pacing the living room, shaking so hard my phone nearly slipped from my hand. Jason's laugh wasn't a coincidence. It was proof that he and Lana were in on it together. But I couldn't just react. That's what they wanted. They wanted me angry, unstable, emotional, to make the crazy ex-wife narrative stick. So I forced myself to think. Really think. If Lana was editing footage, planting devices, and manipulating Jason, then she had to have more. Something she was hiding. People like her always keep receipts, especially when they think they're smarter than everyone else. So I made a plan. Step 1. Gather evidence quietly. Step 2. Let them think they'd won. Step 3. expose everything all at once with proof that no one could twist. I started by setting up a second backup cam, hidden inside an outdoor light fixture facing both driveways. Then I installed a tiny Wi-Fi microphone inside my own fence post, pointed toward her yard. If she wanted to spy, I could play that game too, only smarter. Meanwhile, I started recording every interaction. Every time she spoke to me, every time Jason texted, every noise that came from her property. It all went into a folder on my laptop labeled Sunshine, just in case anyone ever stumbled across it. Over the next week, I acted normal. I waved to her when she was outside. I even let her borrow my hose when she claimed hers wasn't working. I played the part of the friendly neighbor again, and she bought it. Completely. Then I baited her. One afternoon, while she was out front, I accidentally mentioned to a mutual neighbor that my lawyer said I'd have to delete the footage from my camera soon because it wasn't admissible anyway. That night, I caught her sneaking into my driveway again, checking the window where my first backup camera was. She didn't realize it had been moved. The next morning, I called Jason. I told him I wanted to clear the air and that maybe we should all talk. Him, me, and Lana. So things didn't get worse. He was skeptical but predictable as always. If it'll stop the drama, he said. Fine. I'll come by Saturday. Perfect. I spent the next few days preparing. I organized all my recordings, timestamped everything, and even printed still frames from both camera angles, hers and mine, showing her lunging at me first. Then, on Saturday morning, I set everything up. My living room looked normal, but my laptop was recording video and audio. The kids were at my sister's. When Jason arrived, Lana showed up 10 minutes later, pretending to be reluctant. I could see the smugness on both their faces. They thought this was going to be some kind of intervention, like they were going to help me realize how unstable I supposedly was. Thanks for coming, I said, forcing a smile. I just want to talk. Jason crossed his arms. We're here because we care, Megan. You've been spiraling. Lana nodded like a therapist on TV. We don't want you to ruin your life. Maybe if you just admitted you lost your temper. That's when I cut her off. Actually, I said, reaching for my laptop, I think it's time you both saw what really happened. I pressed play. Her face drained of color the second she realized what she was seeing. But that wasn't the end. Because right as the footage started, another voice came through my speaker. From the mic I'd hidden near her yard 2 nights before. Her voice, saying something that made even Jason's jaw drop. Her voice came through the speakers, clear and sharp. Once the assault charge sticks, she'll lose custody. Jason already said he'd testify. Then she'll have to sell the house, and I can buy it cheap. The room went silent. Lana froze, her face pale, her mouth opening but no words coming out. Jason looked like he'd just been punched. Play that again, I said quietly, and hit rewind. Once the assault charge sticks. Jason's voice came next, faint but there. You really think she'll lose the kids over that? She's already on thin ice, Lana replied. If she looks unstable, the court will side with you. You'll get the kids and I'll get the house. Everyone wins. Everyone wins. I stared at Jason, waiting for him to say something, anything, but he just rubbed his face, muttering, Jesus Christ, under his breath. Was that your idea or hers? I asked. He didn't answer. The air felt heavy, electric. Lana was shaking now, but she tried to recover. That recording's illegal, she snapped. You can't just record people without permission. Actually, I said, keeping my voice calm. In this state, I can record anything on my own property. And since you were standing right next to my fence when you said that, guess what? It's legal. Jason finally spoke. Lana, what the hell is this? You said it was just about helping Megan get help. She turned on him instantly. Don't act innocent. You were in on it too. You wanted her out of the picture just as much as I did. The argument spiraled fast. They started shouting over each other, each trying to deflect blame, both forgetting I was even in the room. I just stood there, recording everything. When Jason finally stormed out, slamming the door, Lana rounded on me. You think this changes anything? She hissed. People already believe I was assaulted. That recording won't make you look sane. Maybe not, I said, walking to the door. But it's enough to make the cops reopen the case. She went quiet then, just staring at me, eyes cold and flat, like all the fake charm had drained away. And that's when she said something that made my skin crawl. "I never wanted you hurt, Megan," she whispered. "I just wanted your life. You didn't deserve it." Then she smiled. A slow, twisted smile. She left without another word. But I could feel it. The war wasn't over. That night I didn't sleep. I copied all the files to 3 different drives, emailed everything to Marcus, and made a backup to the cloud just in case. The next morning, the police came. I gave them everything, the video, the audio, the timestamps, the voicemail, the photos of the planted mic. They didn't say much, just took notes and promised to review new evidence. For the next 48 hours, I barely ate. My hands shook every time my phone buzzed. I kept expecting Lana to show up again or for Jason to. But instead, I got a call from Marcus 3 days later. His voice was lighter this time. "The police went through her footage and found edits," he said. "Metadata doesn't lie. They're filing charges for evidence tampering, false reporting, and stalking." I almost dropped the phone. It wasn't over, but it was turning. And soon, I'd find out why Lana had gone this far. The real reason she wanted my house, my family, and my life. Because it wasn't just envy. It was payback. When Marcus called again a week later, he sounded uneasy. "We found something else," he said. "You might want to sit down." Apparently, when the police executed the search warrant on Lana's house, they found more than just editing software and a few tampered files. They found binders, actual binders, full of printed photos, notes, copies of my social media posts, and even screenshots from texts between me and Jason from years ago. She'd been keeping them. I didn't understand how she even had that stuff. But then Marcus told me the part that made my stomach twist. "She used to work in your old HOA office," he said. "Before you bought your house, she handled the paperwork for the previous owner." I froze. "Wait, my house?" He sighed. "Yeah, there's a letter in her files. Looks like she tried to buy your property before it hit the market, but your offer went through first. She'd already paid for an inspection. Lost the bid by a few $1,000s. I sat there, gripping the phone. "You're telling me all of this, all of it, was because I bought the house she wanted?" "Not just that," Marcus said. "There's more. Apparently, your ex-husband used to rent a place in the same complex where she lived. She knew who he was long before she ever moved next door." That's when the whole picture snapped together. The way she coincidentally moved in after Jason left, how she knew about our arguments, how she said things that only someone close to him could have known. She'd been planning this. Not just the false assault report, not just the stalking, everything. She'd found Jason online months before she ever met me, started messaging him under a fake name, pretending to be a concerned friend who knew about his wife. She fed him stories about me, twisting everything I'd ever said or done into proof that I was unstable. When she realized I was the one who bought the house she'd lost, she fixated. And when Jason left, she saw her opening, to step in, to help, to turn my life into a slow collapse she could control. "She wanted to replace you," Marcus said quietly. "Your home, your kids, your life, everything." I couldn't speak for a long time after that. My skin crawled. Every interaction I'd ever had with her replayed in my head. Every friendly visit. Every time she'd offered to help with the kids. Every moment she'd watched me through those cameras. She didn't just want to ruin me. She wanted to be me. The police found a notebook in her bedroom too. The cover said, "The life that should have been mine." Inside were lists, things she wanted to fix once she took over. My kids' schedules, my mortgage payments, even ideas for repainting my kitchen. It wasn't jealousy. It was obsession, deep and festering. And the worst part? Jason knew more than he'd ever admitted. In her texts, they talked about helping each other rebuild, about a fresh start in the house that ruined us both. He wasn't innocent. He just hadn't realized how far she'd go. The DA offered him a deal in exchange for cooperation. He took it, of course. He always took the easy way out. But I wasn't done yet. Because even though Lana was facing charges, I wanted something more than her arrest. I wanted everyone who'd believed her, who'd whispered about me, judged me, called me crazy, to see exactly who she really was. So I came up with one final move. Not just revenge. Closure. The day of Lana's arraignment, I showed up at the courthouse in the same plain gray dress I'd worn the day I was arrested. It wasn't to look nice. It was to remind everyone where this started. Reporters were outside because the story had spread fast. Local woman accused of faking assault with edited footage. Apparently, once the police discovered her files and the life that should have been my notebook, it blew up. The judge even sealed some of it because of how disturbing it was. Lana wouldn't meet my eyes when they brought her in. Her hair was messy, and the fake composure she always carried was gone. Jason wasn't there. He'd already moved out of town after cutting a plea deal for obstruction. Coward. My lawyer didn't want me speaking, but the DA had already agreed that I could submit a victim impact statement. I stayed up all night writing it, simple and clear. No emotion, just truth. When they called my name, I stood. I was arrested in front of my kids, I said. I was humiliated, called dangerous, and treated like a criminal. I lost work, I lost friends, and I nearly lost custody because of the lies this woman created. But I'm standing here now, and the truth is on record. Lana twitched slightly when I said truth. I continued. She tried to take my life because she thought it should have been hers. But she'll never have it. Not my home. Not my kids. Not my peace. I handed the judge my statement, turned, and walked out before the hearing even ended. I didn't need to hear her sentence to feel free. But I wasn't quite finished. The next week, I sent the full, unedited footage, hers and mine, to the HOA board, every neighbor who'd whispered, and every parent from the school who'd once looked at me with pity or suspicion. I added a short note. For those who wondered what really happened, the response was immediate. Apologies. Messages from people who'd stayed silent before. One even said, "I'm so sorry we believed her." I didn't answer any of them. I didn't need to. The house felt different after that. Lighter. I took down the cameras, replanted the flower bed, and finally slept without checking the windows. My kids started laughing again. Ellie stopped asking about Miss Lana. My son told me, "You're the bravest person I know." That one nearly broke me. Lana took a plea deal. 18 months for falsifying evidence, harassment, and stalking. She's not allowed within 500 feet of my property or my kids' school. Jason filed for visitation a few months later, but my lawyer made sure everything he did went through the court. No calls, no surprises, no more access. Sometimes I still catch myself glancing toward her old house. Now sold, freshly painted, new family moved in. I wonder if they know what happened there, if they can still feel the rot she left behind. But I don't dwell on it anymore. I've rebuilt, piece by piece. I've learned that people who crave control will always underestimate those who've already survived loss. Because once someone tries to take everything from you, and fails, there's nothing left to fear. When I see my reflection in the window at night, I sometimes think about the first time I saw that doctored footage of me charging her. It used to make me sick. Now it makes me smile. Because the only thing I ever charged toward was freedom.